Beautiful summer day in Maine. Look at that. Not a cloud to be seen, not a whiff, not a poof, nothing. It's about 76 degrees, maybe 78. I think I'll double check that actually real quick. 78 degrees. .78 degrees. The dew point is about 50. Very low on the muggy scale. Yesterday was atrociously muggy, oppressively, horribly muggy. A dew point of 75, which is what you guys get down south. It was close to 90 degrees. I didn't walk yesterday because something turned up last night, and I didn't go for my night walk, but probably would have been a good idea to take a night off anyways. I've been walking every night pretty regularly. So anyway, today we're going to have at least 6 miles in the books. We got a few things to talk about today, but the weather being nice is definitely one of them, and not oppressively humid. Very comfortable. This is closer to the kind of weather you might get in Southern California, especially around San Diego. Although their dew point is drier than ours, it's actually more comfortable, but this is definitely low humidity. So I'm walking today with what I'm wearing today is not usually what I wear when I walk. I'm actually wearing jeans, and I'm wearing a polo shirt. So I did put my ball cap on though for the sun visoring aspects, and I am wearing my ratty walking shoes. So anyway, we got the brand new selfie stick again today, which I'm going to turn around for y'all. Well, that's odd. That guy across the street, he's got a portable crapper there. Oh, he's having work done. The workers have a portable crapper, so they won't use the one in his house. Anyway, I'm going to turn the camera around, and this is the new selfie stick. It's pretty good, it's not bad. Might be a little closer to the camera than what I'm used to, and maybe what you're used to as well, but that's okay. So anyway, this is my walking attire for today. So this is definitely a perfect walking day, without a doubt. And a few things to talk about today. Some you know, I wasn't talking much about the other stuff going on with the Trump administration because everybody's been at least everybody online has been absorbed with the Epstein debacle, as I'll call it. Turns out we passed the $9 billion rescissions bill. What does that have to do with Epstein? Well, I'll get to that in a minute. I watched some of it online, and Democrats seizing upon the Epstein file debacle to gum up the works for Republicans had a handful of Republicans vote along with the Democrats for a Democrat amendment during the rescissions process to demand the release of the Epstein files. So now you're getting some Republicans voting along with Democrats for that foolishness. Trump's not happy about it, and he shouldn't be. And so now the Epstein thing is going to start creeping into the legislative process. And apparently Trump has seen enough of that. He's made some phone calls. I'm sure some Republicans got an earful. And the other thing that happened is Trump issued a statement last night, and AG Pam Bondi did as well, stating that he has ordered the Department of Justice to release, quote, all files that are credible with the Epstein case, and for the grand jury testimony to have Pam Bondi petition the court to release those to the public. There's a whole conversation in itself just with that. So we got plenty to talk about today, and today's main topic is going to be about that, because there's a lot to discuss. One, the big deal about it is grand jury testimony on its face is a prosecutor is trying to charge somebody that's suspected of a crime. So jurors are brought in for a grand jury, and they are presented with enough evidence to convince the jury that a trial is necessary. Some of it may be hearsay, some of it may be credible. Perfect example would be, let's say somebody was murdered in my neighborhood, and I live in the neighborhood, and I went out for a walk in my neighborhood at the time the person was murdered. I walked down the same street where they found the body stuffed behind bushes. Okay? So that would be presented to the jury, combined with other evidence, usually eyewitness testimony mainly, or physical evidence, and is presented to the jury. Say we have a reasonable, probable cause to believe that this person was involved in this crime, but we need a trial to determine that. And then the jury decides if there's enough evidence to have a trial. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, whatever is in grand jury testimony, it's not credible as absolute evidentiary fact, but it indicates or implicates. And to be clear, Trump was not mentioned in these files, okay? I want to get that out of the way at the beginning here. I'll wait till this person with the dog goes by. Hi.
Hi there.
So, I guess what I'm saying is that, okay, Trump used to be on TV. Used to be, you know, a TV celebrity, pretty famous. I never really watched this show. I never really followed Trump before he went into politics. Probably might be a similar story for a lot of people. And I had heard of him, but I would always see these clips of The Apprentice or a commercial for it, and I'd be like, it's nothing. I've never been a reality TV type fan. I never really watched any of it. And so anyway, way back then, nobody brought any civil lawsuits against Trump for sexual misconduct. Nobody brought any kind of anything. Nobody sued him for damages. Nothing happened until he became president, or was running for president. Okay, so that's important to remember and keep in context. The reason why I say that is the Epstein thing had been going on for a long time, especially in the 80s. Trump was associated with Epstein at one time. They got along, they were kind of friends. Epstein actually flew his kids from Florida to New Jersey a couple of times. So his kids are in flight logs. And it was one of those things where Trump's plane was being overhauled, retrofitted or something, had something done to it. And Epstein flew his kids as a favor, because Epstein was also in Florida. Trump was in Florida. Now, there's a couple of really important things to keep in mind here. One, Trump banned Epstein from Mar-a-Lago before he ran for president. Started to give him the creeps, and he didn't like the way Epstein was treating some of the staff, and meaning girls that worked there, okay? He was acting inappropriately with women that worked at Mar-a-Lago. Now we know why. We'll walk up this hill. So that's on record, that's fact. Cannot be disputed. And after that, Trump did not associate with him. So there's photographs of Trump with Epstein. There's photographs of Trump's kids on Epstein's plane. From said flights. All right, so got that out of the way. Whew, steep hill. It's hard to keep a conversation going at the same time and breathe. So anyway, long story short, Trump is absolutely not in any Epstein flight logs to Epstein Island. He is being flown from Florida to New Jersey more than once. but it was in the continental United States. Nothing to talk about, okay? Other people flew on Epstein's flights. Some big names, some not so big. And some went to Epstein Island. Now, the reason why I'm mentioning all this is the grand jury evidence, testimonies from eyewitnesses has been seen by at least 2 attorneys that have come forward and said that Trump was never implicated in any of their testimony. Attorney Schoen, S-C-H-O-E-N, stated that he was one of the last people to speak with Epstein, and he was representing his client like you're supposed to. And he stated today on CNN, for the whole world to see, he specifically asked Epstein about client lists, any evidence that he could use to exonerate him, because he's a defense attorney. His job is to get Epstein off. And keep him out of prison. Epstein ended up killing himself, which has been concluded to my satisfaction, that Epstein committed suicide. I still think they should release the autopsy. And the thing with that is, the reason why people questioned whether it was a suicide or not stems from Epstein's brother. Epstein's brother, who probably had a lot of money from Epstein after he passed, hired a forensic specialist to oversee the autopsy, the information and evidence taken from the autopsy, the photographs, x-rays, all that stuff. And he stated that he could not conclude that Epstein committed suicide. He later changed his mind and stated, after examining the stuff again, that he did commit suicide. I think the person that was hired to do the autopsy was trying to state foul play so then they could sue the New York State corrections facility he was in, which was a federal one, I believe. I think they were trying to file a lawsuit, but later on stated that it was a suicide. All right, so get that out of the way. I think they should release all pertinent information that's credible, like Trump said to do, and get this out of the way. Really. They just passed the biggest rescission package in many years, $9 billion of Doge cuts to NPR and PBS, who are guilty of running propaganda for Democrats, anti-Republican propaganda, and more specifically, sensationalizing everything about Donald Trump. That's all NPR has been doing. Now, PBS, public broadcasting, is trying to plea that they didn't do that. And while I agree with some of that, they weren't as bad as NPR, but they were. They did that too. And specifically, their main crime, in my opinion, was promoting transgenderism, gender ideology, far-left extremist, neo-Marxist gender ideology, and neo-Marxist ideologies in general. Specifically, with Elmo, Sesame Street, they introduced a gay character on Sesame Street, normalizing it for children. They had a drag queen one time, a couple times, and they were promoting the rainbow stuff, and they had the trans flag on there. All of this crap everybody's pissed off with, and they were indoctrinating children. So that's why they got defunded, and that's why I'm saddened by the whole Epstein thing, because what's everybody talking about today? Epstein. They're not talking about that package. So we got to get this out of the way, okay? Just get it out of the way. It's a friggin' nuisance. I know it's a nothing burger. I've said on these walks, I'm going to be able to tell everybody, I told you so. Whew. So anyway, reason why I mentioned that is because with the grand jury testimony, the way this works is, and you're going to see a bunch of people online that don't know shit about it, saying it's one thing or another because they had just read somebody else's post about it, okay, that also didn't know what they were talking about. So that's how a lot of this stuff starts. So I explained to you how they get a grand jury indictment. It's not a slow process. It can take a long time. But when they finally do, all it is, it's enough evidence to have a trial to prove their guilt. There's not enough evidence presented to a grand jury to conclusively say somebody's guilty. And it's never presented that way. Even if they have DNA samples, a video of the person committing the crime, and you know damn well they did it, that's not the grand jury's job to find guilt or innocence. They have to determine if the evidence presented to them is enough to have a trial. That's all it is. So, an example would be the trial that Trump had in New York about falsifying business documents. New York has their own statute where you can tack two misdemeanors together if both of them were intended or tied together to accomplish one goal, which in this case was to hide a payment to Stormy Daniels under a business expense. The statute of limitations had run out for one of the crimes, but they used a newer crime of falsifying business records to tie it with the old one to try to piecemeal something for a grand jury to indict with. So according to New York law, the grand jury had enough for an indictment. There was no actual evidence showing Trump did anything wrong. They just had the business record, had a discrepancy, and a payment was made to Stormy Daniels. 2 + 2 with the New York statute. Well, we got enough here to have a trial. Trump can then go prove his innocence, which he got rooked on. So anyway, this grand jury with Epstein has at least two victims, maybe more, that gave testimony. And again, this lawyer, who was Epstein's lawyer, saw these files, saw the testimony, and said emphatically Donald Trump was not implicated in them. So you can put that away, okay? The Democrats are going to try to say Trump's hiding something, blah, blah. I'll tell you what's going on with Trump. Trump is legitimately pissed off that this is probably the best presidency anybody's ever had. Win after win after win after win. Court wins, legislative wins. And all they keep asking him is about Epstein. So he was legitimate at that cabinet meeting, in my opinion. Now, I'll reiterate, he answered poorly. Communication from the White House on this has been terrible, but I honestly believe it's because they have bigger things going on and this is a distraction. It's not for the base, but for him in his job and what he's doing, it's a distraction. And interestingly, yesterday I saw a clip of Nancy Pelosi. Good old Nancy, remember her? She says the Epstein thing is a distraction, just like everything else the White House is doing, she said. And she didn't want to talk about Epstein, basically saying, you know, let's move on from this. Right now we have the Trump administration and Republicans legislating and winning and defeating all of this stuff that Democrat voters want, and Epstein is a distraction. So of course that looks like, Trump says this is a distraction, Pelosi says it's a distraction. What are they hiding? So this is the age-old conspiracy theory stuff. And before I go any further on that, a lot of the talk online is had to watch out for all the cars. A lot of the talk online is, this is going to screw up midterms next year. And I was thinking that a little bit. I mentioned it to you guys, just a little. But so when you look at it realistically, what's going on with that is, I don't know if you caught this on CNN yesterday. Like I said, I put it on there once in a while to catch what the daily narrative is for the left. CNN's the one you usually can tell the most. And what I mean by that is MSNBC is full of lies and BS so much all the time anyway that you can't really judge what their narrative is that day because it's the same every day. Gotta get Trump! CNN comes off a little more, maybe pretending, but they pretend to be a little more non-biased. But they are. So anyway, they had some new polling on there, and this is really important, okay? Now, most of this controversy with Epstein came about online with social media influencers. Jack Posobiec, guy that calls himself George. You have a whole bunch of MAGA ones on there, including Alex Jones, people like that. Who now, by the way, Alex Jones claims he's not MAGA. He's never belonged to any cult, quote unquote. This, you know, Alex Jones is a grifter. And I used to follow Alex Jones, and I'm really disappointed in how quickly he turns to whatever he needs to pay his bills these days. So, anyway, when you remove the social media rhetoric, and you just look at the new polling that was released, and the new polling was done by Gallup, Wall Street Journal, USA Today, a couple other ones, ones that really don't like Trump. They said right now, since the Epstein stuff, Trump's popularity in the Republican Party is at an all-time high. It's actually come up 10 points in some of the polls. So now he's hovering around between 85 and 90% approval of Republicans polled. And this just goes to show you how much a bubble that social media can be, where if you polled people on X, you'd probably get numbers much lower than that. Probably around 60 to 70%. So that is social media for you. As I keep an eye on traffic. I'm going to turn the camera around. So anyway, I guess what I'm saying is it's very important to keep everything in context. And also, okay, and I'm really tired of hearing this, and I'm going to tell you to your face. When somebody says there's not enough evidence to prosecute people, or there's this, there's that, or the grand jury information that's going to be released it's not going to satisfy anybody. It won't, because one, it's going to be redacted. I don't know how heavily redacted it'll be, but anything to do with the victims or personal information, if they're giving testimony and somebody did something and they went through her blank to take out a blank, I mean, that stuff's going to be redacted. There's not really going to be anything useful in it. So, and that's determined by the courts, not the DOJ or Trump. They have no control on what the court decides gets redacted or not. They have to sit down with the judge and the court people, with the lawyers, and go through the testimony. They're going to have to go through it, and somebody's going to have to represent the victims, and they're going to say, yes, that can be released, that can't be released. Maybe they've already done it. Maybe they've been doing this, and this is why they haven't been talking about it. So now they got everything they wanted. Now they made an announcement. Pam Bondi announced it last night, so did Trump. So it is going to be released if the courts decide to. The courts could very well say no, no, and it's probably a long shot to begin with, because courts usually don't release that. That's confidential. They don't release grand jury testimony unless it's something extremely important, and the judge just might decide Epstein's dead, this is political now. You know, sorry, but no. Protecting the victims is more important than satisfying one party or the other. So, but you might get a judge that absolutely hates Trump and may think this may help the Democrats. From what we've seen with the courts, would not shock me at this point. We'll wait and see what happens, but I'm doubtful they'll be released, and if they are, it's going to satisfy nobody that's upset right now. They want all the files, full disclosure, full transparency with no redactions. That's what they want. It doesn't matter that the whole reason they're upset right now was the answer that Pam Bondi gave at Trump's cabinet meeting, where she said, and this is what she said, you can go double check if you want. She said, pretty much a quote, "We've released the files. There's no files." There's no client list. All there are is sealed documents in the courts, and I can't release those, which is true. Then she said, and this is exactly what she said, there's videos that belong to Epstein that Epstein, I quote, downloaded child porn online. She said he downloaded that online like it was his personal trove. It wasn't anything he recorded. So there's no clients or victims in the videos. That's what she said at the cabinet meeting. It's going to be the same story. And it's not going to satisfy anyone. And I hate to tell you folks, when I say that, don't tell me I'm protecting pedophiles, because I'm not. I'd love nothing more than there to be a client list with videos of clients and lock up these sick mofos, okay? But they don't exist. There's no big cover-up. There's no client list. If there was, it's gone. Lawyers that have represented Epstein, both of them that I've seen mention it, stated there was no client list. That's it. If I have an address book on my phone and it's not titled client list, how can you say it's a client list? Epstein knew a lot of people that were very rich. Just because their name is in his phone address book, or an address book, a physical address book, it was the 80s, doesn't mean anything. Being on a flight log doesn't mean anything. So, you gotta have evidence. You have to have beyond all reasonable doubt for a criminal charge. If there's any reasonable doubt, like solely eyewitness testimony, you can't charge somebody criminally. Now, a lot of people will say, well, you can use eyewitness testimony. Yeah, you can. But that's usually correlated with other evidence. Like a security camera places somebody at the time, like I was talking about a little while ago. If I went for a walk in my neighborhood and they found somebody dead and I was out walking about the same time, they could say, well, he was there and had the opportunity. Then if you throw in an eyewitness saying, I actually saw him do it, well, it's up to the jury to believe the eyewitness or not. Then you may have DNA under my fingernails. Maybe I left a hair on the body. So it'd be one of those things where you piece all this stuff together beyond all reasonable doubt. And the reason why they call it beyond all reasonable doubt is if you have an eyewitness, let's say you have an eyewitness. She has prescription glasses. She forgot her glasses at home that day. She saw you do it, but then you bring in an eye doctor professional, which you usually have to pay them to do that. They come in and they'll say, yes, with this type of macular degeneration, blah, 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 blah. In my professional opinion, it's doubtful that this person could see 40 yards away without their prescription glasses. See, that's a defense attorney's job, to raise reasonable doubt, because you have to have beyond all reasonable doubt to convict somebody. So that's how that works. They never had that with anything with Epstein. No client list has ever been produced, shown, seen by anyone that was involved in any courtroom proceeding. This is all just Bigfoot, it's urban legend. There has to be a client list. There has to be famous people. Now, I'm sure there was. The only two cases I've seen was the case against Alan Dershowitz. The case against Alan Dershowitz was, I'm picking these up here on the side of the road because these are really fun to shoot with .22 rifles when you throw them up on a hillside. Sometimes they hop around and dance all over the hill, shoot up in the air 10, 15, 20 feet. So I'm going to carry these. So anyway, I guess what I'm getting at, sorry about the rock and roll here. I guess what I'm getting at is, if there's anything you can do to raise any kind of reasonable doubt, that's what you do. And so far, what happened was, and it wasn't a criminal case against Alan Dershowitz, it was a civil matter, a defamation case, because that's all they could do. Because like I said, there was no client list, no other evidence, no videos. Was one of the victims was filed a lawsuit against Dershowitz, claiming that Alan Dershowitz was one of the men that raped her on Epstein Island. Now, I don't doubt at all that she was ever on Epstein Island. I'm sure she was. And I'm sure men had their way with her. Not belittling that. The point is, she ended up dropping the case against Dershowitz because, and she said it in court, I made a mistake. I misidentified him. It was a long time ago. It's not him. She said it was somebody that resembles him, but it's, you know, I can't be sure it's him. So that was the end of that, okay? And that's what I mean. In a civil matter, it's what you can get the jury to believe or not believe, and you can use more circumstantial evidence not allowed in a criminal trial. So the point I'm making is, people want these pedophiles to go to jail, quote unquote. I do too. But I'm also a realist, and you know, I rely on facts, and everything I've described about beyond all reasonable doubt is what I'm talking about. There's no videos of clients. I really wish there was, because something went on Epstein Island, and nobody's disputing that. But like I said, not everybody that had sex there had sex with a minor. Not everybody that went there to quote unquote party had sex with anybody. Hillary Clinton's been to Epstein Island. It doesn't mean she was raping minors, okay? So that's what I'm talking about. There's no evidence. Nothing. People going there, some of them that went to Epstein Island probably didn't even know what he was doing there with minors. Most of these quote-unquote kids were minors that were what you would call barely legal or looked barely legal, 16, 17 years old. They started getting groomed when they were 12, 13 by Ghislaine Maxwell. And that's going to bring me to my next topic, is people were talking about, especially Democrats in Congress, they want to subpoena Ghislaine Maxwell to testify in front of Congress to try to get Trump. Now, the reason why this is dangerous is Ghislaine Maxwell got sentenced to what, 30, 40 years? She's going to be in jail for a long time. She's not a spring chicken anymore to begin with. She's pretty much going to spend most of the rest of her life in jail. She may get out earlier, good behavior, blah, blah, blah. But she is in a federal prison. And she's in, I believe, could be wrong, but I think she might be in Washington, D.C. I'm not sure. Anyway, we have federal facilities here and there around the country, and they transfer people all the time. So, for one reason or another, usually death threats, or they're dealing some kind of criminal stuff in there, and they move them to another one. But anyway, the point being, we have Ghislaine Maxwell talking about bringing her into court, not court, but Congress, to testify under oath. What she knows about the Epstein Files. The Democrats are going to grill her about Trump, and if everything is true, like I said, there's no Trump implication there. I don't think she's ever going to give anybody up to begin with. She's already been found guilty. She may even plead the fifth. Or she just may lie and say, well, good luck proving I'm lying, because the reason why you're asking me here is because you have nothing else and you don't know anything about anything. So I don't even know if you can trust her testimony. And I will reiterate, when Trump was asked what he meant when he said that this was a hoax perpetrated by Democrats, what he is saying is that the Democrats are latching onto this like they did with COVID and like they did with everything else, Russia collusion, and turning it into a weapon against Trump. That's what he was talking about. And I really don't care if you believe that or not, but that's what it is. So, I've already had a couple of comments on my previous videos, which I've noticed the comments on my videos have stopped, where somebody that was a regular viewer does not share the same opinion about Trump and Epstein that I do, and I think they feel like I was protecting pedophiles or protecting a cover-up, or I don't know what people think, but I'm telling you right now, you know, this is getting out of hand, and I'm not going to change my mind about anything I said. I know how facts work, and people want the evidence to show rich elites have been raping kids, and we can finally lock up billionaires. I get it, I understand it, but that's not going to happen. It would have happened by now. And basically, for a litmus test, if you want to understand what I'm talking about, how many lawsuits have been filed against billionaires by victims who said they were raped on Epstein Island? There's only 2 cases. Prince Andrew settled out of court, so he was probably guilty. We'll never know for sure. That's why they settle. Rich people settle things out of court all the time to avoid the expensive court costs and public embarrassment, which is why Trump claims he paid Stormy Daniels. For that very reason, rich people get sued all the time. Usually they just settle something, write a check. It costs them less to pay that than it does when it starts costing them business or attorney legal fees and blah, blah, blah. Then they have to go to court, they have to testify, and so that's the system we have. Criminal matters is something different entirely, but the burden is on the state or the government, if it's federal, to prove beyond all reasonable doubt. The jury is instructed to disregard anything that could be, well, it looks like they did it. I mean, they had the time to do it, and he didn't like this person. They're instructed not to go by that. They're to go by evidence only. DNA under the fingernails. They told an eyewitness while they were in jail they did it, while they had been drinking. They got arrested for drunken disorderly and ran their mouth in a jail cell. Things like that, you know? And the defense attorney's job is to say, well, the person he confessed that to in a jail cell is a known paid informant, and in the past he's given false information. So they go out and discredit the person. He's a lifelong criminal, and you raise reasonable doubt. So you have to look at it that way, and you have to respect it. And if you're a defense attorney, you can't accuse a defense attorney of protecting a pedophile. That pedophile has a constitutional right to defend himself. We don't run people up a flagpole with a noose like we used to in the old days. Due process, blah, blah, blah. And as I've said on my walks many times, I heavily support capital punishment, a fair trial by a jury, then a sentencing by a judge of capital punishment for child molesters. I don't have an issue with that. So no, I'm not protecting pedophiles. What I am is protecting the rule of law and the way we do things. And when you go after somebody online and you try to pressure them to change their mind or go along with you, this is what the left has been doing for years. This is how we ended up with woke culture. Woke cancel culture. If you don't agree with our narratives, you're going to lose your job. We're going to shame you in public, and we're going to block you, or we'll lawfare you, or whatever. And I thought we were better than that. At least I hope we are. But lately I've been seeing cancel culture on the right, and I've been seeing the woke right. And it's wrong. I'm really surprised we're not smart enough to recognize that and then just not participate in it. It's really a shame. So anyway, that's my thoughts on Epstein. These files are going to be released if the court agrees to it, which I think they'll agree to some of it. But it's not going to be the big juicy cheeseburger everybody wants. It's going to be another nothing burger. And the mob is not going to be satisfied. And there won't be anything else anybody can do about it. Trump stated he's not going to do a special counsel, which I'm very happy about. And I told you guys why I don't support a special counsel, a special prosecutor. I don't support a special prosecutor because you're opening a can of worms. They start looking into everything. Every transaction you have ever made, every bank transfer, everything. And it takes a long time, well over a year. And then guess what? Somebody leaks something to CNN. Then you get a big news cycle about nothing having to do with land Trump purchased and he defrauded so-and-so, blah, blah. You know, that's where it's going to go. So Trump would initiate a special counsel to go after Epstein. And all I've ever seen from any special counsel we've ever had is it always ends up somewhere else than where it started. And it's never good. So I realize a lot of people were promoting that Martin guy from Missouri, hardcore conservative prosecutor, would be heading that. But still, you're going to be in DC. You're going to have all kinds of staff and people on your staff that hate Trump, because most of the people in DC do. And you'd have to bring in all outsiders. And you're going to spend $40–50 million of taxpayers' money on that. And it's just going to lead to more problems. Having nothing to do with Trump, or maybe something allegedly to do with Trump, or other people in the Republican Party. Because that's always how it goes. So I say no on that. And apparently Trump made the right decision. He's also said that it's just not, he green-lighted that if that's what, Pam Bondi feels is best, but they feel it's not the best thing. Now that would have done a lot to satisfy people temporarily, but it takes like over a year for a special counsel to get through everything they have to do. I mean, they literally have to examine everybody, do interviews, depositions. People have to fly in, do a deposition, and people have to get attorneys. It's a big headache for a lot of people, and I just don't think it's a good idea. So the last aspect of this is we need to come together as a party, and it looks like we have. If you take away the X factor, social media I'll call it, according to the polling that I saw on CNN yesterday, they were shocked. Since the Epstein stuff came out, Trump's approval has jumped 10 points among Republicans. So that's a big deal. That is a clear, emphatic, we have Trump's back. And the reason why they have Trump's back is really probably nothing to do with Epstein. It's tax cuts. People are learning more about the big beautiful bill instead of all the hyperbolic propaganda. Simple things in it like tax breaks for buying a new car if it's made in America. Things like that. The public's getting what they voted for. Cleaning up the education department, which was a big Supreme Court win this week. Another big win for the Trump administration. They got the green light to can a couple thousand radicals, Marxists that were working in our government in the education department, corrupting our children with gender ideology. So people are seeing that stuff. Prices are coming down, cost of fuel is coming down. People are reading about financial stuff. Retirement accounts are doing very well right now. Stock market's record highs. Economic outlook looks strong for the unforeseeable future. Everything is looking absolutely amazing. So that's why Trump's approval is around 85 to 90% in the Republican Party. And he's at about 49 to 50% nationally. We're granted after the election he was at 59%, so he's 9 points down, but every president has their honeymoon and then it equals off, and that's what it's doing. So everything's good. Everything is good, my friends. It's a happy day. It's a beautiful day. Look at it. Trump is in the White House for a second term. Republicans have the House. They have the Senate. And a lot of these people that were claiming that this Epstein stuff is going to lose midterms is really starting to look like nope, that's not the case either. And I say that because the reason why Trump's popularity is going up in the Republican Party is because people are starting to see what's going on. But this time next year, things are going to be booming bigger than they have in decades. I really don't think midterms are going to be a problem, and you're going to have a whole bunch of Democrats, not one single Democrat voted to go along with the big beautiful bill or any of this cost-cutting stuff. Not one Democrat. Not a single one. So next year at this time, when everybody is getting their nice tax cuts, bigger paychecks, people making under $38,000 getting almost all of their paycheck back and no taxes taken out, you're going to tell me with a straight face Democrats are going to win midterms? The Republicans in Congress took a page out of Florida's book. Florida, the reason why Republicans have a supermajority in Florida now, as opposed to 10, 15 years ago, is because they said what they were going to do if they got elected. And then, miraculously for politicians, they actually did that. They did what they said they were going to do. So they kept winning more seats, more seats, more seats, and they keep doing what the voters want. That's why they have a supermajority in Florida. And that's why we're going to win midterms next year. This isn't the usual Republican Party that makes promises and then, you know, by the time next midterms comes, people see through BS and, well, that's not what we got, is it? So, that is the strategy Mike Johnson has. He said that's exactly what the plan is. That's why they wanted this one big beautiful bill, the OBBB, to pass this early in the year, so quickly in the first 6 months, was to give it time to root and fester and show dividends. So that is the plan. So far, so good. What do you guys think? What do you guys think about anything I said today? Why don't we cross the street and take a look at this garden? See if we can recognize. Like we got some rhubarb. I think that's what that is. Kind of small right now. Let's see what we got growing here. We got some stalks. What are these? Sunflowers out front here? Is that what those are? I don't know a plant from the hole in the ground, to be honest with you. I know those are tomato vines in the back there. That's pretty cool. So, my friends, we're enjoying a beautiful day in Maine. Got some nice flowers that came out. Look at that. So, my friends, how cool is that? So yes, we're going to get this Epstein nonsense behind us and out of the way. It is a distraction, and I'm not saying that to belittle victims, and I'm not saying it to protect pedos. What I'm saying is there's so much good stuff going on right now. You know, people are spending time talking about all this stuff, and like I said, if there was evidence, I would love to see it. I'd love to see it come out. But it's not going to implicate Trump. And that has been stated quite a few times by people in legal circles that were actually involved in these cases. One lawyer I saw stated emphatically, I was one of Epstein's attorneys before his trial, before he killed himself, or before he died, he said. He said that he was specifically asked, Epstein was asked if President Trump was involved with any of this goings on and shenanigans, and Epstein said no. And the reason why he asked is, you know, if Trump becomes president and you're a federal prisoner, you know, he's going to have a DOJ that's on his side, blah, 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 blah. So that question was asked, and, you know, a lawyer has to know that stuff, because he has to know what he needs to do to get his client off. So that's why Epstein wasn't lying about it. He said no, he hadn't dealt with Trump for years, since being kicked out of Mar-a-Lago, banned from being in there. So with regard to Trump, this is going to be a nothing burger for Democrats. Like everything else, this is all they have. You know, they really don't have anything else. Polling came out for Democrats, and Democrats' approval right now is 19%. It's the lowest they've ever had, ever. So they are rock bottom right now, and they're still just going to spend all their time Trump, Trump, Trumpity, Trump, Trump. Same thing that hasn't worked for them. They're going to keep doing it instead of having policies that aren't neo-Marxist garbage, like defund the police and whatever else stupid they talk about. So that's my take on that stuff, and as always, I'd really love to hear what you have to say about anything, as always. Really important to talk about this stuff. So we're going to cross over here. Have to change the battery soon. So anyway, what I was saying is, there's a couple of people that used to reply to my videos. So what I was saying is, there was a couple of people that were replying to my videos that aren't replying to them anymore, because they started heading off in a comment about Epstein is involved with a cover-up that's going on, and my information wasn't jiving with theirs. And I'm an independent thinker. I don't go along with a hive. I look at the facts presented to me and I make up my own mind and think for myself. And I don't care who likes it or doesn't. I think I've clearly stated my positions on things. And if you want to cancel me like the left does and shame yourself that way, I can't do anything about that. And I'm not going to. And as I've stated a million times, this is an exercise vlog. And this is something I do while I'm walking. To preoccupy my mind while I'm walking and get my exercise in, so it doesn't become boring and redundant. Some people like to listen to music or talking books or things like that, and I prefer to run my mouth on a video camera and then upload it for the whole world to see and not like what I have to say. I'm going to enjoy the greatest presidency of my lifetime. I am 100% MAGA. I am 100% supportive of President Trump. And until somebody shows me a video of Trump bangling minors, I really don't want to hear it. I want to see facts, not innuendo. And I'll always be honest. Like, I don't like the way Trump answered when he was asked that question. I don't like how Pam Bondi has handled this. I think there was a communication issue, which now is going to be impossible to fix. The only way to fix this now is to lock people up that went to Epstein Island, and that's just not going to happen. It would if the evidence was there, but it isn't. So time to move on. And again, when I say move on, I'm not saying move on from victims being hurt. I'm not belittling that. I'm not limiting the importance of it. I'm just saying that pending new evidence, this is going nowhere. And we have other things we need to get done. Keep looking, keep investigating, but let's move on, okay? That's what I'm going to do. Talking about it today because of the big announcement last night about court documents, and I wanted to get my views on grand jury testimony, what it is and what it isn't, what it may solve and what it may not. And a perfect example of sensationalism on TV is that friggin' idiot Lawrence O'Donnell on MSNBC. I saw a clip of him where he was talking about oh boy, after tomorrow there's really going to be trouble for Trump. You know, they're just selling this like, you know, and that's all they're doing. They're just selling something. Nobody's watching MSNBC, so everything they say has to be extra controversial to keep the idiots they currently have who enjoy hearing that Trump's guilty every day. Lawrence O'Donnell, one of the famous highly paid propagandists on NBC, where he's always, the walls are closing in on Donald Trump. The walls are closing in on Donald Trump. Donald Trump is about to be ended. His lawlessness has caught up with him. The walls are closing in on Donald Trump. Every show he says something like that. And you have to be a completely brain-dead moron to still be watching him regularly. Because he's been saying this since 2015. Trump's going to jail. He'd come on there all smiling. Did you see what happened today? Michael Cohen, a longtime Trump attorney. His eyes are glistening. Yeah, he's probably hiding an erection he has behind his desk. This is the greatest news ever. Donald Trump will not survive this. Oh my God, these people are absolutely an embarrassment. So we're going to watch it all unfold. Now, the last part of this walk, I'm going to talk about the Wall Street Journal having to do with Epstein. Rupert Murdoch owns Fox News. He also owns the Wall Street Journal. And somebody had acquired on a tip a cartoon drawing where Trump signed his name as pubic hair on a naked woman he drew and mentioned something to Epstein. It was a note to Epstein dated 2004, I think. Something about a secret that they know. You know, it's just salacious garbage. Trump emphatically said it was false. I never did that. That's not how I talk. It's not, you know, this is false. You know, kill this story. Well, Rupert Murdoch and White's Wall Street Journal, specifically one of the editors, a female who hates Trump, ran with the story anyway. So now that's in the news cycle today, that Trump was drawing cartoons of women talking about secrets, meaning Epstein and banging kids. And I'll turn us around. Trump said he's going to sue the Wall Street Journal. Defamation. Because he told them. And he actually told his press secretary, who his press secretary actually told the Wall Street Journal, don't run that story because it's not true. So the Wall Street Journal was told 3 times by Trump himself to Murdoch, who owns the company, as well as the person at the Wall Street Journal who makes that decision to run it, not to run it. And they ran it anyway. And Trump said last night, I'm going to sue their ass off. And he will. He won his case against 60 Minutes, CBS. He won his case against other people, other media outlets, Slopolopoulos on ABC. They settled out of court, paid Trump $14 million, I think. CBS paid Trump $16 million because they lied. It's false. You know? So Trump is suing the Wall Street Journal. And he'll win that too. So, you know, that's the new thing that he learned from his first presidency, that's just the way you have to do it because it's the only way you can do it. Otherwise, they won't be honest. And it only hurts them when it hits their pocketbook. And to a big corporation like CBS, $16 million, they spend more than that on a production on a TV series, you know. So it hurts them publicly is what it does. So anyway, coincidentally, by the way, the Wall Street Journal produced no artwork. They described what the artwork was. They didn't produce any image of the artwork. So they just say there's artwork with no artwork. Now you would think if it was a big story like that, they would show the artwork, right? So it looks like blatant anti-Trumpism is what it looks like. And Trump said specifically last night, I told Rupert Murdoch, don't run that story. It's not true. And they ran it. His paper ran it. So anyway, the other thing I'm going to wind up this walk with has to do with CBS. And it has to do with the late night TV show, Late Night, with Stephen Colbert, who used to be Conan O'Brien on CBS, after Conan O'Brien was on NBC, Tonight Show. Then it was Late Night with Conan, and then Late Night with Stephen Colbert. Colbert was one of those woke leftists promoting the jib jab, the jibber jabber, the COVID gibber, okay? That's all I can call it on here, I'll get censored. He was on there promoting that heavily, and it's been anti-Trump for a long time. Well, CBS canceled this show And the circumstances for which they canceled it are Stephen Colbert is a financial risk, they said. That's code words for Stephen Colbert said, no, I'm not going to shut up about Trump. And CBS said, stop doing that. Stephen Colbert wouldn't do it, and he got fired. So according to his contract, he has 1 year left with this show, and then it's all done. So CBS is going to have to monitor his show to make sure CBS doesn't end up paying millions of dollars more for defamation against Trump. Now Kimmel on NBC, I think he's on, and that other idiot that's on ABC late night, I don't know what's going on with their shows, but Kimmel and Jimmy Fallon, they should be fired as well, because these guys' late night comedy show, comedy used to be funny, now it's political, and it's all one way because they hate somebody. And they say some really horrible, like every Republican that ends up on a ventilator during COVID deserves what they got, is what people like Fallon would say. I mean, you know, Kimmel, I mean, that's outrageous. So they should have been fired right on the spot for that. And they weren't. So anyway, my friends, that's all I got to talk about. I'm going to wind up this walk, and I'm going to say thank you very much. Thank you very much for walking with me today. Click like and subscribe. Share the content. God bless you and America. Say a prayer for President Trump, and pray that this whole Epstein thing goes away like I know it's going to. So I said within a couple weeks I'd be able to say I told you so, and it's starting to look like that. So we'll see what happens. Anyway, my friends, before I get eaten by a giant dog, see you guys later. See you on the next walk. Stay fit, stay healthy, make America healthy again, and remember to MAHA. Bye, everybody.